Will the United States give up their lead in the world, submitting to China and Russia and following their footsteps? Or will the United States take the lead and show that we are still the leaders of the free world? Let's dig in and see what is going on today. There's been big news happening all day today. I've been tuned in watching what's going on as Bitcoin and proof of work and proof of stake and other cryptocurrencies is in the debate in Congress. They are talking about whether they should allow you, the free person in the land of the free, to continue to do what you want, to store your wealth the way you want, and more importantly, for the market to decide what they think is the best technology and what they want to do with their money and their time, again, in the land of the free. Let's take a look at what was going on today, and I'm going to explain to you some nuance that they are, of course, not digging into. They're not sharing with you that will completely change your opinion on all of this. So if you take a look here, you can see on this Politico document here that Bitcoin is the next climate fight for Democrats. They're kind of putting this, the Democrats and Republicans head to head. I'm just looking at it as like me as an individual, my right to choose versus the government and what they're trying to do. But there's scrutiny from lawmakers. Like I said, they were meeting all day today. And it says here, the scrutiny from lawmakers, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, one of our favorites, of course, and the leadership of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. So that's who's talking about this. The House Energy and Commerce Committee, of course, Senator Elizabeth Warren. We love her. She's a big proponent of our freedom. Just kidding. And it says here, I love this quote from the Bitfury CEO, Brian Brooks. He used to be the OCC, the comptroller of the currency. Now he's in the private markets. But he says, quote, "It's not up to the government to decide if Bitcoin is important to the country's future. That's the market." End quote. And I just love that, what he's saying right there. Again, the United States, the land of the free. It's not up to them to decide what's important if Bitcoin is important to the country's future. It's the markets. It's us. If I think Bitcoin is important to me, who are you to say it's not? And this is really where the crux of the argument lies, in my opinion. They want to say that Bitcoin is a waste of energy. Who are you to say what a waste is? I may think that your 20 minutes of meditation a day is a waste of your time, but it may be very important to you. I might think that your hour of TV watching is a waste of time. I might think the energy that the TV is consuming for you to watch TV is a waste of time. But who am I to say what a waste of time is, what's not worth it to you? One man's trash is another man's treasure. And as I make the case all the time, all value is subjective. So who is the state, who is the government to tell us what a waste is? As he said, that's the markets. And if we keep going down, I'm going to frame this up and then I'm going to show you where they got this wrong and where they should really be focusing on so you have the information you need. So we can see here, Democrats are expected to press the executives to adopt sustainable practices. Key piece. This is where their argument is sustainable practices, while Republicans are planning to frame mining as something the U.S. should nurture as a competitive advantage. And so we saw China kick all Bitcoin mining out of their country in May of 2021, and it handed the lead to the United States. The United States has a chance to lead the world in this and become the dominant player. China kicked it out. Other big news broke today. Russia is also trying to follow the same footsteps as China, and they also want to get rid of all Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining as well. As I explained in those videos, we'll go ahead and link it up here. The reason why China and Russia are trying to kick them out of the country is not because of their energy or something like that. It's because of something known as the Mundell-Fleming trilemma, which is basically a nation cannot control, there's three vectors: one, their monetary supply; two, their interest rates; and third, the free flow of capital. And so if they manipulate the monetary supply and interest rates, capital is going to leave. And so what do? Well, they make it where you can't leave, capital can't leave. And so if people can move into cryptocurrencies and into Bitcoin, it makes it very easy. And if they just cut that off, we saw Russia saying the same thing. It's a threat to their monetary policies. Because if I opt out of the monetary policy, then they can't have any control over what I do. And I'm going to show you the United States is talking about the same thing. It's pretty scary. So anyway, the Democrats want to push this. They want to shut it down. But the Republicans are saying, no, we should keep it going. But again, I don't want to make this about a left versus right argument. I don't look at the world that way. But look at this statement right here from Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's the one leading the charge. She says, quote, "The extraordinarily high energy usage and carbon emissions associated with Bitcoin mining could undo much of our work to tackle the climate crisis. Not to mention the harmful impacts mining has on local environments and electricity prices, end quote. But here's the kicker. Quote again, it is time for Congress and federal regulators to step up and address the serious risks that crypto poses to, check it out, both our economy and our environment. So she's talking about our economy and environment. So first of all, there's about $2 trillion in the economy from cryptocurrencies, hundreds of billions of dollars in crypto mining, probably tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of jobs in crypto mining. And so it poses to our economy, well, really, because if you shut that down, that's going to crush the economy. Of course, they have no problem taking away jobs and shutting economy. But what I think she's really saying is that if they can't continue to manipulate the economy by pumping in money and adjusting interest rates and taxing people certain ways, if they don't continue that, then the economy can be hurt. And of course, if we continue to opt out into some cryptocurrency, they lose their ability to do that. That's what she's saying, and the environment. I want to tackle this environmental piece. I want to show you a couple things here. I want to just look at a couple more things here. So crypto mining facilities, energy consumption is also causing significant increases in energy costs for local small businesses and residents. So they're saying that because all these big businesses are moving in and they're setting up these cryptocurrency mining, they're consuming all this energy and it's driving up the cost of energy, supply and demand. So more people need the energy. It's driving up the cost for local small businesses and residents. So they're saying that crypto mining is competing with residents and driving the prices up on them. 100% false. I'm going to show you that in a second. And we can see here that here's a perfect statement. Mining companies such as Marathon Digital have announced plans to link hundreds of thousands of mining rigs to solar and wind farms. And Jack Dorsey, who was the co-founder of Twitter, recently announced plans to build an open source crypto mining business that has funded renewable-based projects. So these companies are setting up their own energy sources, a lot of them on renewable wind and solar, as you can see, to run their own rigs. They're not going into residential neighborhoods to compete. They can't do that. And I'm going to show that to you in a second. And here's the last quote on this article. A Republican aide to the House Energy and Commerce Committee said the U.S., quote, has an opportunity to lead here, particularly in our competition with China, and again, as of today, even Russia. So will the U.S. pick it up or not? Let's take a look at a couple things. So first off, it's causing enormous harm to the environment, the massive consumption of energy. So let's take a look at that. All right. So first off here's a fact-checking sheet that kind of breaks some of this down. So we see here the claim, went too big, that Bitcoin's growth alone could single-handedly push global emissions above 2%. Okay, well, that's false. So many studies that have been done have debunked the climate natures. All right, but I don't even want to get into that because that's a whole nother argument. But let's look at this. So Bitcoin uses energy comparable to Argentina or Norway. Well, it may be true, but it's misleading. And as you can see here, Bitcoin reliably secures more than double the value of either country's GDP. So if you look at energy to gross domestic product, Bitcoin is producing way more GDP, way more economic activity for the world, but its mining accounts for roughly 0.27% of global energy consumption. That's less than gold mining. It's 18 times less than residential air conditioners. Now, I don't have an air conditioner in my house. I live by the beach and the houses in my neighborhood, we don't have air conditioners. So I think it's a waste of electricity for you to have an air conditioner. Why do you need an air conditioner? I don't have an air conditioner. What's the value of an air conditioner? Do you see the point here? So Bitcoin air conditioning uses 18 times more energy than Bitcoin mining. Is that a waste? Let's keep going. I want to show you a couple other things. This one I love. So the World Economic Forum told us, here you can see it circled in red, in 2017 that in 2020, which is 2 years ago, Bitcoin would consume more power than the entire world does. So in 2017, they warned us by 2020, Bitcoin would consume more power than the entire world. Their models were wrong, just like every other model they have. I don't know why anybody listens to their models. As I just said, Bitcoin mining uses less than 0.25% of all the electricity in the world. Not all the electricity in the world. But let's take a look at this, because this is where we really get into it. So I'm going to reference this article from Lynn Alden. If you're not following Lynn, you definitely should. She puts out some amazing research. But we can see, here Bitcoin Energy has been in the news for years. It's criticized for using too much energy. So this is kind of referencing that same World Economic Forum. Back in 2017, Newsweek ran a piece called Bitcoin Mining on Track to Consume All the World's Energy by 2020, which of course didn't come true. But let's look at what is true here. So we can see the world uses 170,000 terawatts of energy per year. That means that the entire Bitcoin network at its peak estimated consumption level uses less than 0.1% of the world's energy consumption. And that is for a network of 100 million plus users. And so for the amount of users using it and the amount of energy being consumed, it's barely even a blip. As a matter of fact, she says that it's a rounding error as far as global energy is concerned, and says that Bitcoin is estimated to use less than 1/10 of 1%, 1/10 of 1%. And then the key piece here to really hone in on, and I'm going to show you this in a second, a large percentage of the energy that Bitcoin uses is from otherwise wasted energy sources. So it's not that Bitcoin is wasting energy. It's not that Bitcoin is competing for energy, driving it up on businesses and homeowners like Senator Elizabeth Warren told us. No, Bitcoin uses energy that would otherwise not be used, otherwise would be wasted. And I'm going to show you that in a second. So basically, Bitcoin network is forever and will be a rounding error as far as global energy consumption is concerned. So basically what they're saying is that they want to sensationalize things for page views and for political gain. And we could say, to that point, Bitcoin uses more energy than some countries, and that would be true. But if that's true, then also so does Google, YouTube, Netflix, Facebook, Amazon, and the cruise industry. Also Christmas lights, clothes dryers, air conditioners, and household drying machines, private jets, the zinc industry, and basically any other sizable platform or industry. So is Bitcoin mining a waste of energy? Well, maybe so is Netflix. Maybe so is Amazon. So is YouTube. Is YouTube that important? And you can see where the crux of that argument is. In a free country, I should be able to decide what is important to me. But the key piece here really is that all of those things are using energy in normal markets, whereas Bitcoin is using energy that nobody else is using. So let me show you some of this. If I scroll down a little bit on the page right here, it's a long article. It'll take you a long time to read, so I'm going to just bring you the highlights here. All right, so Bitcoin uses otherwise wasted energy. So think about this, supply and demand, right? If in California, in the summer, we have a tiered electricity system, so the more energy you use, the more you pay. At the top tier in the summer, it's 40 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, you can't mine Bitcoin here. Bitcoin mining is not here trying to compete for energy because it's too expensive. In order to be competitive, you need to be about 5 cents a watt, and really most of the big scale production is under 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Well, if I'm paying 40 cents in California, how is it that somebody could get it at 3 cents? How does that make any sense? Supply and demand. So in California, we don't have enough energy. We have rolling blackouts on a regular basis, and so the price of energy goes up. Supply and demand. Some areas, these plants are producing more energy than people are consuming. There's a lot of energy that's being made that nobody's buying, nobody's using, and so the price is very low. And so Bitcoin can move specifically to those places where it's not being used. That's how they're able to get it for 3 cents a kilowatt hour. And so we can see this is what she's saying here, that Bitcoin miners require cheap electricity sources that can't compete with normal users of electricity. So as a result, Bitcoin miners seek out inefficiencies around the world. So to the point Elizabeth Warren is making, that it's driving the price of electricity up on homeowners and businesses, it's 100% false. Bitcoin mining cannot compete. It can't. It only will go to places where there is cheap inefficiencies in the market. And the key piece here, and this is what's revolutionary about Bitcoin, one of the many things, is that we don't move where the oil and gas uranium deposits are. We send folks to get the oil and gas and bring it back to us. But Bitcoin miners are unusual energy consumers in the sense they can go to wherever the energy source is. And so they don't need to compete in California. They'll just go wherever the energy is, whereas in the homes here in California, can't move. I am where I am, and it is what it is, but the Bitcoin miners, they can move. And a couple of things about this that are important. So where do they go that has this cheap of power? Well, they would only go where power is being created that it's not being used. So flared gas Bitcoin mining. So all throughout Texas and North Dakota, we have oil, which we need to drive your car and have your food delivered to the restaurant and have Amazon deliver your packages. And so we need that. And when they're getting the oil out of the ground, natural gas comes out of the ground. But natural gas, a lot of it doesn't get captured, and so it's either vented, it's released in the system, or they flare it, they light it on fire and burn it. All right? And so that is wasted. Venting means just letting it out into the atmosphere as methane, which is a stronger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, and then flaring it means it's burned. So it's basically a complete waste. Either way, yet you're still contributing to the global greenhouse gases. And so, if we look at how much is done per the U.S. Energy Information Administration, in 2020, natural gas reported 1.48 billion cubic feet of natural gas was vented or flared per day on average in the United States throughout 2019. That's about 150 terawatts of energy for the year, which is higher than the estimated total peak of Bitcoin annual usage in 2021. It's actually 8 times larger than the Bitcoin's network energy use. So 8 times more energy than the entire Bitcoin network needs is being vented, just released into the air. And it's bad for the environment. So that is not being used. We could capture it, which would save the environment because now it's not being vented, and then we can turn it into Bitcoin. So Bitcoin isn't bad for the environment. As a matter of fact, in this situation, it's actually helping the environment. See how they're spinning this? So it's a win-win. It's a win for producers and the Bitcoin miners. The producers get to sell their gas rather than waste it. They also earn a higher ESG score and meet the state's flaring limits, and Bitcoin miners get a super cheap source of energy in the process. Think about that, how good that is. But it's even better than that. So let me break down another thing. So Bitcoin mining as a grid battery. So they want us to move to unreliables, wind and solar. I call them unreliables or intermittent power because the wind doesn't blow all the time and it's not always sunny. And so it's not a really good source of power. So what has to happen is we need to overbuild the amount of wind or solar so that if it's low wind or low sun, we can still generate enough. But the problem is if we overbuild and then it is windy and it is sunny, then we're producing too much power. The power is not being consumed. It's being wasted. And so Bitcoin mining can plug in on those types of grids. When the power goes down, the Bitcoin mining can just shut off. And then the power being created can go to the homes. And when we have an oversupply of wind and sun, and it goes more than is being consumed by the homes, then Bitcoin mining can turn back on and absorb that. And so what that can do is it can help these wind and solar, these intermittent or unreliable sources to scale, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to build that because you wouldn't be able to cost benefit that out. There would be no return on investment. And so Bitcoin mining can help that, but it gets even better. So here, as I said, Bitcoin mining makes it profitable to overbuild renewable sources of energy production, allow the surpluses to be monetized. But even better than that, look at this. I'm going to skip down here. Okay, advancing new energy technology. So for example, we can fill in the gaps for new clean energy technologies and help them scale. All right, so Oklo here is a startup and they want to make these mini nuclear power facilities. All right, the problem is if they want to build one of these little mini nuclear power facilities, they don't have anybody to buy the power right away. And so they're producing power and no one's consuming it. And so Bitcoin mining can work directly with them to absorb that energy until enough homes and businesses have moved there to take that power. And then once there's enough people using that power, the Bitcoin mining can pack up and move and go somewhere else. So that's one example of how we can pioneer new technologies using Bitcoin mining. And then I love this right here, bootstrapping developing countries' electricity. Many low-income countries have a lot of energy resources, including hydroelectric capacity. However, they often have a chicken and egg problem. And that is, it's either too expensive for them to build the electrical transmission and distribution infrastructure to move that power from where it's generated to where it'd be consumed. And they can't get a lot of capital because there's not a lot of productive capacity that's sitting there ready to use electricity. So basically, let's say that you're down in Paraguay and there's a river and you want to build a hydroelectric dam. The problem is there's no real businesses there or homes around there to use that energy for the hydroelectric dam. So how do you get the money? You have to raise money, you have to sell bonds. How do you get that money for the dam when you can't sell the electricity because there's nobody there. Or in the Congo, the same thing. And so in these countries, what do? Well, they can have Bitcoin mining there. It can purchase that power temporarily until the resources get built up around it. When there's more demand for the power, the Bitcoin mining can pack up and move. And so that's really the key piece here. Is that Bitcoin mining will only move to the place where there's wasted electricity, where there's energy not being used. And it can use that until there is a demand for that. Now, in the case of the shale and the oil and the natural gas being flared up, that's way out in the middle of nowhere. It's not cost effective to capture that and move it, and so it can help the environment by capturing that gas and turning it into something. In the case of trying to scale wind and solar throughout the country, it can help that. In the case of pioneering new technologies, it can help that. And I just want to let you know the whole argument that they're having today over is it bad for the environment, is it a waste of energy, is completely wrong. I want you to know the difference. And really what they're trying to say is that you don't have the right to choose. They should, as central planners, decide what is the best form of energy, and ultimately what they're trying to decide is what is the best form of consensus for a blockchain. But that's up for the market. But what do you think? Do you think that you as an individual should be able to choose, that the free market would decide what the best technology is? Leave me a comment and let me know down below. Of course, as always, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. If you don't like this video, I don't know why, but give me a thumbs down, that's okay. But at least leave me a comment and let me know. And that's what I got for you today, all right? To your success. I'm out.